Welcome back to Leeds Lately. Before we get into this video, if you could just hit that big button down below, that would massively help me out. And also check out the links in the description. My Etsy prints designed by me for Leeds United fans. The wall art is now available in the description. And the Leeds United Champions Again Ole Ole print is only £5.99 at the moment. Anyway, this is going to be another tactical preview before the Wolverhampton Wanderers game. As we do usually, we will get up the tactics board here and we'll have a little bit of a look at how Wolves play. Now, last season, under Vitor Pereira, Wolves turned their season around with a combination of some good tactics, a bit of innovation from Pereira, and some of the really good players that they had in there as well. And before we get into any of the actual tactics, one of the big reasons why Wolves have been struggling this season is because they've lost some of those key players. Last season, Wolves would rely on Strand Larsen, who they've now brought in on a permanent, so they've still got him. Andre Gomez, the holding midfielder, who's very, very good at destroying things, breaking things up, and spraying the ball around the park. So those two are still there, and those two are still available to play in the starting lineup. There's a couple more, though, that are vital to the way they played last season that I don't think they perhaps have adequately replaced. They have sold Ait-Nouri to Manchester City, and Ait-Nouri, of course, would have been in this left wing-back position over here, and that would have meant that he was a really big part of the way that they attacked. So he's gone, and they've replaced him with Wolf from the Eredivisie for €9 million. Not particularly like for like in terms of quality. Then you've also lost the fact that one of these players here would have been Matheus Cunha, who's obviously gone to Manchester United. So that's a big miss for them. They also had Pablo Sarabia as well, who was another big creative outlet for them. So I think they're going to really struggle to create goals this season, because whilst you've got Strand Larsen, who is a very, very good striker, by the way, sometimes if he's not going to get the service, he's not going to be able to score the goals. And Leeds have kind of seen that a little bit as well. Like, even if we had brought in somebody like Demirovic or somebody like that up front, would they still have particularly had the service to him, which is why we were trying to buy players like Harry Wilson, like obviously before that, better options like Igor Paixão and people like that. Leeds are having a similar problem to Wolves in the fact that it's going to be difficult for them to score goals, because the players that Wolves have lost and the players that Leeds have struggled to sign have meant that they aren't creative enough on the attacking kind of side of things. Now, let's have a look at, in general, what Wolves like to do then. They like to play in a 3-4-2-1, which when they are defending, let's talk about defence first. When they're defending, they'll have 3 on the edge of the box like that. They'll tuck that in there, so they'll actually have 5 back, and then they'll have 2 midfielders that drop in here as well. And then it'll be a little bit like something like that. When Leeds are attacking then, it's going to be a really difficult task for us to break down a 5 at the back. And we know from experience that we struggle a little bit anyway in terms of creating chances when we are having to break down opponents like that. This is in a situation that you might expect to see in the game with your 2 centre-backs kind of on the halfway line, everybody else looking forward. And Wolves are going to be very, very tight and hard to break down. Let's say that the ball's over on this side of the pitch. You'd actually more likely see a little bit more of a kind of a packed box towards this side. And actually, sometimes what they will do is they will leave, let's say, Bogle as a free man out on the wing. They'll pack this area of the box, but they'll leave Bogle as a free man out on the wing. But that's them trying to set a trap. So what they're attempting to do here is, let's say that Gabriel Goodmanson decides he's got no good options here. So he goes back to Longstaff. Longstaff passes that ball across into Stack. When Stack then tries to carry the ball forward and maybe make a play out to Bogle, that is when these players will come out of the box and basically provide a little bit of a trap so that when he plays that ball, it's intercepted and they can then break. Now, what is interesting about Wolves when they break is that they kind of break with whoever is nearest to the ball And so sometimes that's actually the centre-back. There's times last season where Matt Doherty would be charging out of the box. So say that this was Aït-Nouri, but this season it'll be Wolf. They'll be charging forward. Wolf for Wolves, I've only just realised that. They'd be charging forward and there'd be 3 players forward, and it'd be Doherty, the fullback, and maybe a couple of the midfielders. And they'd be the ones charging forward. But the thing is, because they're playing 5 at the back or 3 at the back, they'll still have 2 centre-backs that can tuck in nicely and just create that almost a 4 at the back still, so that when they attack, they have a little bit of cover back. But even so, these are the moments where I think Leeds get the most joy on the counter-attack. Because whilst everybody's chasing back here, let's say that Leeds come across a little bit, Longstaff drops in there. If Leeds win the ball back in a counter-attack situation like this, say a heavy touch or something, and Rodon's able to quickly get the ball into Bogle, this is when you get the chance to counter-attack their counter-attack. I think is when Leeds are going to get the most opportunities. So they give the ball away in those situations because, again, whilst Wolf, I don't doubt that he's probably a decent player, I don't think he's quite got the quality of an Aït-Nouri, who has obviously drawn the attention of Manchester City. So let's say he loses the ball out in that situation and Jayden Bogle now has it back. Coming down this side, he's then got Dan James. I know Dan James pulled up in the last game, so let's say it's Nonto or Okafor, whoever it is. He's now got them making a run down the channel. And there's going to be so much more opportunity to get players into the box in these situations with that cross that Leeds probably will manage to get some opportunities from those moments. However, we need to be so much more clinical and so much more. We need to take more risks in attacking positions. That's the way that Wolves will play pretty much. They will sit in as a back 5 at times, then attempt to play on the counter-attack, charging forward with whoever is available to charge forward, and then the other players will cover. You've also got somebody like, before we move on to what Leeds will do, you've also got somebody like Andre Gomez, who is a very good kind of dictator of the play in that midfield. And he will always kind of drop in and try to see himself as the free man. Let's drop Leeds back into the formation that we'll be playing. It'll be a little bit like that, I would imagine. He's the one that kind of drops back and say the winger out here doesn't know who to pass to. He'll drop back into Andre Gomez, and if there's a run over the top, he sometimes will try and make that long ball over the top for the fullback or the winger to drift out wide and get. And of course, we also need to be aware that Strand Larsen in positions like this will sometimes drop in. Let's say that the midfielder here is looking for a pass. You'll see that Strand Larsen will peel off the defender. Let's say it's a little bit more like that. He'll peel off the defender into the midfield, win the ball back. But instead of kind of just popping it back or taking a turn and slowly kind of having a look at his options, a lot of the time you might see that this first pass is marked to here because our Anton Stack, for example, would block that. But in this situation, because of the run made by Strand Larsen and even pulling a defender with him, he will try and play a first time ball into whoever's playing that position. A lot of the time last season, I think it was Bellegarde. In that situation, it allows Strand Larsen then to try and get a run on whoever that is, because Strand Larsen is probably going to be faster than Joe Rodon. So if Bellegarde can play the ball in behind, that's an important thing for us to look out for, that Joe Rodon doesn't get sucked around too much into those positions where he's basically going to leave a gap in behind him. So let's reset a little bit here. In the situations that we saw against Fulham, now I was going to make a full video about this, but I think we'll just mention it in this one to kind of be like, this is something important for the next games that we play. And it's a little bit, I mean, I think it's probably mainly about Anton Stack, to be honest, and it's just about his risk-taking. Now, there was a moment in the game where Stack had the ball in a position like this, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin had a defender on him, but was making a run across there like that. And Stack was making a run into here. Stack just had to try to thread that ball through the gap for Calvert-Lewin to run onto, because Calvert-Lewin had got goal side of his defender and made a good run. But instead, Stack took a split second too long And he had to, in the end, have a look up, and his only option was to go all the way back out to Okafor. And then Okafor, by the time anything happened, he's got players around him, and he isn't able then to actually get in a position where he can cross the ball in the box or do anything with it. So it's about taking those risks. And I think in that situation there, that Dominic Calvert-Lewin makes very clever runs. I made a whole video about the runs that he makes, but he will come from outside to in, and he'll make a run in there. And that is the moment where you have to try and, obviously be offside there, but you have to try and thread the ball through to him, even if it's a left foot. It was a bit like this. He had to make like a reverse pass, you know, when you kind of cut it back against the direction you're running. But if he'd made that pass, Calvert-Lewin would have been one-on-one with the goalkeeper, and you'd like to think he would have finished it. It's about being able to take those calculated risks, because if you lose the ball in that situation there and you give the ball and it's straight into Totti Gomez, for example, the worst that can happen is he has the ball at centre-back. He's got an entire, like, Wolves have got to play through the entire pitch to be able to score a goal. If you're taking risks at centre-back here and you're trying to play it into Ampadu and you accidentally play it straight into Strand Larsen, that is so much more risky, of course. So it's about calculated risks. It's about, in this situation here, if you pass it out wide, what are the benefits of that? Yes, you retain possession, but you're no closer to scoring a goal. If you take the risk, a little bit more of a risk of losing the ball here, but a lot higher chance of being able to actually get in behind and score a goal with Calvert-Lewin. So that's where I kind of look at things here. In this game, we've got to be very, very switched on that when their counter-attack comes forward, that we are able to deal with it. And if we do win the ball back, we've got to counter-attack them quickly and make good decisions in the final third. That's the way I see this game. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Of course, we will be live for this game like we usually are. So come and join me on that one. There'll be a match reaction, of course, afterwards as well. But thanks for watching Leeds lately, and I'll see you in the next one.